well, what are these black people here? They had to print something on how these people migrated out of Africa. You see what I'm saying? When we know that ain't nothing but Northeast Africa. Iraq, Arabia, all of that. You see. So when but they had to print this thing in the Washington Post because they got black people there. You see. And so when the soldiers asked these questions, well, what are these black people doing here? They had to make an African migration to cover up the fact that that original land was black people, and black people still live on that land, where they live in Israel. You see what I'm saying? Where they even live as far as Vietnam. You see what I'm saying? You see. So the point I'm trying to make here is, we even have to question that. Take for instance. Well, let me give you one other thing that I want to do to clear this up about the Egyptians and their relationship with the Greeks. Another faction of African people. There's some books called the Alexandria projects that came out in the early 90s. And so what they wanted to do is they said, well, we want to try to get as much stuff that we know that we benefited from the Library of Alexandria, which the Library of Alexandria was nothing but a consortium of works that came from the temples to build one central library during the time of Cleopatra and the time of the whole Greek thing. You see. So what happened was they convened and had these conferences, and they had these books that came out, these Alexandria product books that came out, and they mentioned something in there.
Roll it, Bobby.
What I want to do, like I said before, is I want to clear up some stuff between the relationship of the Greeks and the Hemmites or the Egyptians, now that we have proven that they are black. The Greeks. You see, they were a Phoenician culture. And the Phoenicians was nothing but a branch of pre-dynastic Egyptians. You see, pre-dynastic Egyptians. Now, in this relationship, the reason why several doctrines had to be handed over to the Greeks is because they understood one thing. They understood that hieroglyphics or metanetta was going to be a dead language for close to 2,000 years, for over 2,000 years. So, understanding these priests, understanding that this stuff was going to be a dead language, they had to give certain things to the cultures that would be later cultures, these later cultures would give the information that will fall in the hands of younger cultures, even younger cultures than the later cultures. So the Egyptian priests understood we have to further this particular information, which eventually went to the Moors. So let me go back to this so you can understand this. In this Alexandrian conference that they had, they came up with the truth in the early 1990s. They said that a 100-year period of Greek rule, 1 to 200-year period, mostly about 100 years, they did one thing. They literally translated metanetta, or hieroglyphics, at the Temple of Dendera, the Temple of Isis, Temple of Esna, a Temple of Komombo, and some Ptolemy temples, and the Library of Alexandria. The Egyptian priests. Now, how can a Greek person, how can a person from another culture know what the Hemmites are thinking if it's not their language? In order for this stuff to be translated and transferred to the Greeks, it was the Egyptian priests. So for a 100-year period, at these particular temples. And at the Library of Alexandria, what they did is they translated the meta principles, doctrines, and all of the knowledge, a great deal of it, because part of it burned, the Library of Alexandria burnt down twice. But central pieces they had to get off of the mainland of Hemmitt, and they translated meta into Greek, Latin, Aramaic, Arabic, Amharic, and all of the central Hebrew, all of the central languages that would be the later day languages that will go out for the future. So that entire area, they translated, the Egyptian priests for 100 years, they translated these particular texts because they understood that meta wouldn't survive. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So even the people at the Alexandrian conferences that knew this admitted this in the 1990s. Now even Walter Williams said that the reason, he said that a lot of the cultures around there, they had language they can speak, but they didn't have scripts. So Latin was created by so they would go to Hemmitt, which was the central place of education. And these cultures would travel to Hemmitt. And they would say, well, listen, here's a script that's going to go along with your language. You see, to go along with your language. So the Egyptian priests created scripts, which would be Latin, Greek, Hebrew, or what have you. They created scripts for the central people around that area. Arabic, you see, Arabic. All of these particular texts were nothing but inventions of the Egyptian mystery systems. Mm-hmm. So Walter Williams talked about that, how they didn't have languages. They would go to Hemmitt and they would give them scripts to go along with their languages. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, what they did do with all of these texts, they translated these actual texts from meta into these central languages. And that's what the Greeks were there for. Mm-hmm. They were there for now. And then they also knew that the Romans was coming, which the first years of Rome, the Romans tell you, we're nothing but a spinoff or a later day culture of the Etruscans. Now we got statues of the Etruscans look like Isaac Hayes. You see. And Etruscans was a matriarchal culture. Huh? So even that, you see, you know it's a black culture. Right. So the Romans, so I want to get this straight now. So what we see as central Greek stuff was intentionally given to the Greeks by the Egyptian priests by translating the stuff into Greek and also into Latin. Then the Romans came in, which was a culture that the original Romans were black people, and pretty much like Dr. Asa Hilliard said, and a lot of these scholars, if we was to transport ourselves back to ancient Rome, just like if you go downtown Manhattan, you will see most of the people you would see would be white. But if you go to Harlem, most of the people you see is black. Ancient Rome used to look like Harlem, because the culture was so old and they had ruled for so, well, they had been a part of civilization so old, black people, Africans, until the central people that you would actually see would be a sea of blackness. Mm-hmm. So when you see these epic movies that they have, and you see one or two black people in the crowd of a whole sea of white people, in Ben-Hur and all these types of Roman movies, Spartacus and different things like that. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. If you was to actually go back to that particular time it would be groups of white people, patches of Europeans that migrated into a central black culture. Or you would have a group of people that came together as a Roman Senate and dominated and started ruling over a wide body of people. So it would be like South Africa. The masses of the people are black, but they got these rulers that migrated in. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But here go again. We looking at stuff in the modern mind because I got pictures of Roman families that's black to this day. If you go to Rome, they got nappy hair. You see what I'm saying? You see?
How then was the culture of the Romans so different from that of their predecessors if they were still black people, Egyptian people?
Okay,
it's culture and
okay, the culture. Now remember, some of this culture started. It wasn't the central people of the land that was running it. It was these usurpers, just like you would have in South Africa, that had come in. You see what I'm saying? That had come in and started imposing things. Now let me give you an example. They talk about Roman genius, and they did this, the bathhouses and the aqueducts and all of this kind of thing. They said they basically, the Romans benefited from when they would go into places in Africa and around the ancient world and take slaves, and those slaves would take their technology, they bring them back and they would use their technology to build Rome. So even from the buildings and from anything they did, it wasn't the actual Roman people that did this. This was the people that they colonized. Mm-hmm. You see, or extrapolated. And these geniuses around the ancient world would come in and build the Roman engineering. You see, the Romans didn't do nothing, but it was just a small body of people that didn't know how to do but one thing: kill people and have people being killed for recreation in the Colosseum. You see what I'm saying? But here's a people that knew how to acquiesce certain material that they had gotten from the ancient people. So, give you a classic story. A classic story was that they were dominating the Hebrew people. And at that time, Hebrew people were black people. Mm-hmm. The white Jew didn't come into the picture until Spain. He was converted into Judaism. So the ones that were nothing but were nothing but Upper Egypt, Lower Egypt, which is Upper Egypt, and Upper Egypt is Lower Egypt. You see what I'm saying? Right. So they called the bottom part of Egypt, going into Ethiopia, that was called Upper Egypt. The top part of Egypt they called Lower Egypt. Mm-hmm. The Lower Egyptians later on became your Hebrews. So we still talking about a branch of Egyptian family. Mm-hmm. Because even in Hebrew mythology or Hebrew lore, they say that Mizraim is Egypt, and that's one of the tribes of Egypt, mm-hmm. tribes of Israel. Mm-hmm. Then you get the word Israel, Isis, Ra, and El, because one of the names for Horus is Al. So Israel is Isis, Ra, and El, because Ra is also interchangeable as a form of Osiris, because Osiris is the hidden god. When you get the word Amen Ra, Amen means hidden. Mm-hmm. So Isis, Ra, and Al, son, Horus, Israel. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? What we're talking about, nothing, just other branches of our family. Whether it's Phoenician, whether it's all of this type of stuff, whether it's Sumerian, we talking about nothing that was not black. Everything was black. Mm-hmm. Now, in dealing with this, when the Romans was ruling over, they got ruling over Israel. Parts of Israel in Palestine, Jerusalem, what have you.